All right, so moving on to the final segment, we're going to pivot here to the world of wrestling inside the WWE world. And in this segment, I'll be sharing my top 5 Undertaker WrestleMania matches. So, the Dead Man, the Phenom, the greatest WrestleMania wrestler of all time. Ranking his best WrestleMania matches from number 1, going all the way down to number 5. So, starting off with number 1 on the list would be none other than The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. Now, I really believe that this was the greatest WrestleMania match of all time between the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels and the Phenom The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. They stole the show in what was a forgettable WrestleMania 25, which really should have main evented WrestleMania 25 based on how bad the main event was between Triple H and Randy Orton for the WWE title. But as I digress, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels' chemistry from the late 90s translated into that ring nearly 10, 15 years later in 2009 for that match that they had at WrestleMania 25. The story was, heading into the match, that The Undertaker never defeated Shawn Michaels throughout his WWE career. And Shawn Michaels basically putting it all on the line to end the streak. So that was the story there. It was a back and forth match. You had several near falls during the match. Near falls don't make near fall counts like the way how they did between Taker and Michaels at Mania. But Shawn Michaels hitting the moonsault off the top rope on The Undertaker. Then The Undertaker hitting nearly breaking his neck, hitting a diving, trying to hit a diving move over the ropes, but nearly broke his neck, taking out the cameraman. And The Undertaker catching the final sequence of that match, when Shawn Michaels couldn't put The Undertaker away, with several sweet chin music, several kickouts, several near falls. The Undertaker catching Shawn Michaels in midair with the moonsault, catching him in midair, and hitting the devastating tombstone pile driver to end the match to keep his streak intact against Shawn Michaels. That was an incredible finishing sequence. One of the greatest sequences that I ever seen in a wrestling match of all time. But that match, I would say, is the greatest match I've ever witnessed in my life between Undertaker and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. Now, number 2 on the list is Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 26. I think this is the second best match of Undertaker's WrestleMania career. The story was there. Streak versus career for Mania 26. That was an incredible story and one of the greatest build-up promo package videos I've ever seen in my life. Shawn Michaels wanted revenge. He ended up crashing out and doing anything necessary to end the Undertaker streak and get that rematch. Now, it failed because he failed the first time because The Undertaker was the world champion at the time, so he had to win the Royal Rumble. Shawn Michaels did not win the Royal Rumble. Him and Triple H being DX, they had the tag team titles. They ended up losing the tag team title. Shawn Michaels disappearing, going MIA. Then Shawn Michaels returning at the Elimination Chamber, costing The Undertaker the World Heavyweight Championship to set up that defying streak versus career match and rightfully a main event at WrestleMania 26 that year. But I really believe that Shawn Michaels putting his career on the line at the time, me being in 5th grade, I really believe that Shawn Michaels was going to win the match and end the streak. But there was a lot of near falls, instant classic in this match. A lot of near falls, great in-ring chemistry. A defiant Shawn Michaels smacking The Undertaker in the mouth when Undertaker told him to stay down towards the end of the match, only for The Undertaker to pull the trigger and hit that defining tombstone pile driver to end The Undertaker, or to end Shawn Michaels' career. And I'm not counting that Saudi Arabia bullshit. That is when Shawn Michaels' career ended that night. So, I mean, storylines and everything, they were this close of topping off WrestleMania 25. But if you put together the storytelling, the build-up, and the match, it is debatable which one you like more between Mania 25 and Mania 26, between those two respective matches that had The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels a part of it. But I think that's the second best match of Undertaker's WrestleMania career. Now, third match was The Undertaker versus Triple H inside Hell in a Cell, end of an era at WrestleMania 28. Now, Undertaker and Triple H had great in-ring chemistry as well. They topped off their WrestleMania 27 match with being inside Hell in a Cell the following year, WrestleMania 28, end of an era match. And the way how grueling that match was at WrestleMania 27, The Undertaker wanting revenge for how he barely escaped with keeping his streak intact, barely escaping with a victory against Triple H. But both men left it all out on the line in that Hell in a Cell match. They beat the hell out of each other pillar to post with weapons, using the Hell in a Cell cage to their advantage. There were several near falls. There was a point where Shawn Michaels was going to stop the match for both The Undertaker and Triple H of how much chaos and destruction was happening. And I'll never forget that near fall where The Undertaker pissed off Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels hit the sweet chin music on The Undertaker being the special guest referee. Triple H hitting the pedigree on The Undertaker with one of the craziest near falls in WWE history, with The Undertaker kicking out at 2.5 after that. But The Undertaker beat a defiant Triple H that did not want to stay down. The Undertaker put away Triple H, and that goes down as a golden match because it truly was an end of an era that night for 2 stars that held it down all the way from the Attitude Era and all the way to 2012, gave us one of the best WrestleMania matches of all time. And that iconic picture that of Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and The Undertaker on that stage to close out that match. If it wasn't for John Cena and The Rock, first time ever, that should have rightfully main event of WrestleMania 28. But that's number 3 on my list. Now, number 4 on my list is The Undertaker versus Edge at WrestleMania 24. Now, the WWE actually built this match perfectly because the way how the match was built, the story was built all the way months before Mania, May of 2007. And I remember this, a 3rd grader, watching a casual episode of Friday Night SmackDown. When Edge cashed in the Money in the Bank on The Undertaker to become the new World Heavyweight Champion. Man, I was a pissed off kid going to sleep that night. But Edge cashing in eventually set up for the story of what would happen between him and The Undertaker. And Edge was the perfect heel at the time, the ultimate opportunist, had all the power in the world on the Blue Brand on Friday Night SmackDown, was married into the Guerrero family, being married with Vicky Guerrero's storyline. And he was the World Heavyweight Champion. He was the perfect choice to end the streak. But I get that Edge refused. But classic match between The Undertaker and Edge. Plenty of storytelling in that ring. Several near falls. The Undertaker had to go through hoops and hell and back to win that World Heavyweight Championship that night. He had to take out Curtis Hawkins and Zack Ryder at ringside. That tombstone pile driver that The Undertaker hit on Edge with Charles Robinson, the referee, doing the iconic sprint down the ring only to get a 2.5 count. Man, special times. But The Undertaker eventually put Edge away with the Hell's Gate, made him submit to become the new World Heavyweight Champion. I think, honestly, that was the best match of the Rated R Superstar Edge's career. That night, WrestleMania 24 against The Undertaker. And last but not least, this one was debatable. I was thinking of putting The Undertaker versus Batista WrestleMania 23 here, or The Undertaker versus CM Punk WrestleMania 28, or WrestleMania 29. But I went the route and picked The Undertaker versus Triple H WrestleMania 27. Now, with how iconic that was at the time, The Undertaker and Triple H both returning the same night on an episode of Raw in 2011. Both were sidelined. Both were out for a very long time. Both of them were the perfect dance partners to wrestle with each other at WrestleMania 27, which was the best match on the card, and which was a forgettable WrestleMania 27. But from the opening bell, these guys beat the hell out of each other, pillar to post. They tackled each other, cracking Michael Cole's announce box. You guys know the story of Michael Cole having his announcer box at the time. The Undertaker hitting a back body drop on Triple H, sending him off, like feet in the air off the announce table, back body drop on the floor. Triple H catching The Undertaker in midair to hit a double-A spine buster through the announce table. There were several near falls, and there was a point where The Undertaker actually hit, Triple H actually hit the tombstone pile driver on The Undertaker, getting a sickening 2.5 count. But it was Triple H that got choked out in the Hell's Gate, and eventually The Undertaker kept his streak intact to win the match. So, in summary of this segment, when you think about it, and The Undertaker being my favorite wrestler of all time, it is a crime that Vince McMahon wanted this man's streak to end. And if anybody was going to end it, it should have been an up-and-coming star of Bray Wyatt at the time or Roman Reigns at the time. It should not have been a made man like the Beast incarnate Brock Lesnar. Unbelievable that this man's streak ended. Something that should have been tacked forever. Because The Undertaker is the greatest WrestleMania performer of all time. But those are my top 5 Undertaker WrestleMania matches, and that is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This is your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off, and I'll see you guys on next week's episode.